Hello and welcome to the Narc Alert, the channel where we look at YouTubers and others to see if they demonstrate any traits that fall within the spectrum of narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD. These videos are for fun and entertainment purposes only, strictly my opinion, and remember, please don't send any snark to our possible narcs. So key points to remember: messy fun, and not a diagnosis. Hello my lovely alerts and welcome back to the Narc Alert. I will say this next video is highly requested, but it doesn't come without its own share of special disclaimers. Tonight we're going to take a look at Amber Heard. Now the reason I've hesitated in doing Amber before now is, quite frankly, she has been publicly diagnosed as having histrionic personality disorder as well as borderline personality disorder. But nowhere did any of her doctors specifically say narcissistic personality disorder, so I felt safer to avoid her. But you kept asking and I'm certainly interested, and to be honest, she shows a lot of traits that fall within the cluster B of personality disorders, of which NPD is one. And as we all know, we can show traits of a disorder without actually having that disorder. So all of that said, let's take a look at Amber Heard's latest interview.
Do you stand by your testimony and your accusations against Johnny Depp about abuse?
Of course. To my dying day, will stand by every word of my testimony. Vast majority of this trial was played out on social media. I think that this trial is an example of that gone haywire, gone amok, and the jury is not immune to that.
You think the jury saw it?
How could they not? I think even the most well-intentioned juror, it would have been impossible to avoid this.
An inflated sense of self-importance is typically a trait of NPD. She is disparaging the integrity of the jurors by saying they could not come to an honest verdict as they will be swayed by the media that they are consuming, after they swore not to read about the case. She is so important, there is no way they could have not read it, and then having read it, they would have no mind of their own to make an honest choice.
Every single day I passed for 3, 4, sometimes 6 blocks, city blocks lined with people holding signs saying "Burn the witch," "Death to Amber."
We cannot prove or disprove the existence of these signs. I will say a deep dive on the internet for anti-Amber signs roadside did not show anything that dramatic. Someone who is narcissistic constantly exaggerates their stories and discusses things with an aura of overinflated importance, to the point that they may become defensive when questioned or when someone challenges their idea of superiority.
After 3.5 weeks, I took the stand and saw just a courtroom packed full of Captain Jack Sparrow fans who were vocal, energized.
Can you put into words how that felt?
This was the most humiliating and horrible thing I've ever been through. I have never felt more removed from my own humanity.
Amber was diagnosed with histrionic personality disorder, which is characterized with being overly dramatic and emotional for attention. People with HPD may be unable to cope with losses or failures. They may crave new things and excitement, which leads to risky situations. People with this disorder are usually able to function at a high level.
Let's go back to the day of the verdict. Were you feeling confident?
That's a great question. I wish I could say yes to that. I want to say yes to you, but it wouldn't be true.
People with histrionic personality disorder are likely to become very emotional. Whenever an issue does arrive, they can act in a theatrical manner, over-exaggerating the problem significantly. It was a yes or no question.
Even if you think that I'm lying, you still couldn't tell me, look me in the eye and tell me that you think on social media there's been a fair representation. There was another trial, dealt with the same substantive issues that had even more evidence in. In fact, mine My evidence was largely kept out. Really important pieces of evidence kept out. Done differently, handled differently by a judge instead of a jury.
Histrionic personality disorder falls within the cluster B of personality disorders. Cluster B personality disorders include conditions such as narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, and antisocial personality disorder. People with HPD may project blame onto others, much like those with NPD. Here, it sounds as if Amber is blaming her loss on the fact that it was a jury and not a judge.
For some people, they just were frankly disgusted by the whole thing and don't have much sympathy for either one of you. Can you understand that?
Absolutely. I would not blame the average person for looking at this and how it's been covered and not think that it is Hollywood brats at their worst. But what people don't understand is it's actually so much bigger than that.
Once again, Amber is blaming the coverage for the public's distaste for her, and in true cluster B form, she tells us we do not get it. We are too simple to see the more important issue at hand, and we are led by media opinion only.
In the closing arguments, the Depp lawyer called your testimony the performance of a lifetime and said you were acting. What do you say to that?
Says the lawyer for the man who convinced the world he had scissors for fingers. I'm the performer. I had listened to weeks of testimony insinuating that, or saying quite directly that, I'm a terrible actress. So I'm a bit confused how I could be both.
Yes, Johnny Depp also lists acting as his profession. Most people did not think he had scissor fingers in real life. This is an odd argument. Also, to be fair, Depp's legal team never accused her of being a good actor, only that she put on the performance of her life.
There are tapes in which you acknowledge hitting. There are tapes in which you say, I started the fight.
I know much has been made of these audio tapes. They were first leaked online after being edited.
This is a typical cluster B response to being backed in a corner with hard proof. You did not hear it right, and I will discredit the source.
What you would hear in those clips are not evidence of what was happening. It was evidence of a negotiation of how to talk about that with your abuser.
But I am looking at a transcript that he says, you start physical fights, and you say, I did start a physical fight. I can't promise you I won't get physical again. I mean, this is in black and white. I understand context. But you're testifying and you're just telling me today, I never started a physical fight, and here you are on tape saying you did.
As I testified on the stand about this, is that when your life is at risk, not only will you take the blame for things that you shouldn't take the blame for, but when you're in an abusive dynamic, psychologically, emotionally, and physically, you don't have the resources that, say, you or I do with the luxury of saying, hey, this is black and white, because it's anything but when you're living in it.
So much word salad. She is also trying to deflect. She stated she never started a physical fight. There is hard proof. She cannot dispute that she has. She will still not take responsibility. She is a victim, and it is the fault of the abuser that she instigates fights or the environment. She then goes on to state that this happens to women as most do not have the resources to cope that she does. But the conversation is about her.
But then there are other times, there's another tape where you're taunting him and saying, oh, tell the world, Johnny Depp, I, a man, am a victim of domestic violence.
20-second clips, or the transcripts of them, are not representative of even the 2 hours or the 3 hours that those clips are excerpt from.
Those with HPD may project blame onto others and are likely to shift the responsibility for any inappropriate behaviors they exhibit onto other people. She did not say what we heard. This is once again someone's fault.
What about the witnesses who said they have seen you instigate physical violence.
I've seen firsthand how people will file rank and support the person they depend on.
Did they all come in and lie in court?
I am not here to call any of his witnesses any names. I'm here to just kind of talk about it from what it felt like for me as the person who sat there.
Amber is employing word salad to soften what she knows is an unpopular opinion. She thinks all of his witnesses lied for him.
When I asked his lawyers, why do you think you won? And the answer I got was, because she never took responsibility for anything she did in the marriage.
I did do and say horrible, regrettable things throughout my relationship. I behaved in horrible, almost unrecognizable to myself ways. I have so much regret. I freely and openly and voluntarily talked about what I did. I talked about the horrible language. I talked about being pushed to the extent where I didn't even know the difference between, right and wrong.
She is literally addressing not taking responsibility by not taking responsibility. Yes, she did a few things, but she was pushed to it. It's not her fault.
There's a text message where Johnny promises total global humiliation for you. Do you feel like that came true?
One trait of HPD is to adopt the use of theatrical behavior as though performing in front of an audience. People with HPD may also use exaggerated emotions and expressions and seem to lack sincerity in their actions.
I know he promised it. I testified to this. I'm not a good victim, I get it. I'm not a likable victim. I'm not a perfect victim. But when I testified, I asked the jury to just see me as human and hear his own words, which is a promise to do this. It feels as though he has.
She is the perfect victim of an evil man who made her this promise to destroy her. This is, of course, after she tried to do the same sort of thing to him.
Having been found liable, are you nervous, as we are here today, about what you can say now?
Of course. I took for granted what I assumed was my right to speak.
Do you feel like you could be sued again by him for defamation?
I'm scared that no matter what I do, no matter what I say or how I say it, every step that I take will present another opportunity for this sort of silencing, which is what I guess a defamation lawsuit is meant to do.
Defamation is only used to silence you if there is 1. A false statement purporting to be fact, 2. Publication or communication of that statement to a third person, 3. Fault amounting to at least some negligence, or 4. Damages or some harm caused to the person or entity who is the subject of the statement.
It's meant to take your voice.
Life had seemingly moved on, and you decide to write an op-ed. Why did you do that?
Because the op-ed wasn't about my relationship with Johnny.
But it alluded to him. It was unmistakable.
You know, what the op-ed was about was, me loaning my voice to a bigger cultural conversation that we were having at the time.
This wasn't about her. She was standing for all women. A grandiose self-image causes you to believe unique traits and talents set you up above everyone else. It can cause you to consider yourself unstoppable, untouchable, or destined for great and important things. Like another Amber we know, she wants to inspire.
Did you worry? Gosh, I'd love to be a person weighing in on these cultural issues, but that's going to stir this all up again.
I obviously knew it was important for me not to make it about him or to do anything like defame him. I had lawyers, teams of lawyers.
The fact that she had teams of lawyers implies that she knew she was in risky territory with this op-ed. It is almost as if she knew what she was writing could be considered defamatory. Also, get new teams.
Review all the drafts of this.
When you wrote this op-ed, it was the height of Me Too. Legions of powerful men being canceled, losing their jobs. Did you want that to happen to Johnny Depp?
Of course not. Of course not. It wasn't about him.
But Depp's lawyers convinced the jury Heard was lying about the abuse.
This was a hoax, according to his team. Why didn't I cooperate with the police? As I've testified before, and I will stand by until my dying day, I didn't want to cooperate with them. I didn't want this to be out. I didn't want this to be known. I didn't want to cooperate with them because I didn't want this to be, I didn't want to get him in trouble. If it was a hoax, I could have done that.
But 5 days later, you went to court, and it came out.
5 days later, I made the decision to stand up for myself and protect myself.
She has crafted the narrative as she did not do the right thing after being assaulted by reporting it, as she was covering for him. She did not want this out there, yet 5 days later she creates a media circus under the guise of speaking her truth.
An employee of TMZ testified at court and said that TMZ was tipped off about when you were going to be going to the courthouse and on what side of your face bruises would be apparent. Did you tip off TMZ?
I was going to say, he certainly didn't get tipped off by me or anyone in my...
Did anyone you know tip off TMZ?
Why would they? No.
You asked no one to do that?
As I testified to before, it had nothing to do with me.
We cannot be certain about who called TMZ. It does, however, seem unlikely to be anyone but Amber or someone very close to her who knew she would be at the courthouse that day.
You had promised to donate the $7 million of your divorce settlement to charity. It was revealed at trial that you haven't done so yet. However, they played a tape where you stayed on the air that you have donated it. Do you think that raised questions as to your credibility with the jury?
I made a pledge, and that pledge is made over time by its nature. And
when you say I donated, you know that everybody thinks that you've donated it, not that you've pledged it. So for the jurors sitting there, do you think they felt like that was you getting caught in a lie?
I don't know, because so much of the, I feel like so much of the trial was meant to cast aspersions on who I am as a human, my credibility.
Believability and credibility was the whole point of the trial. Pledging and donating are not the same thing. She's been caught in a lie and will not let it go.
This is another one of the examples where if you pull back and you think about it, I shouldn't have to have donated it in an effort to be believed. I shouldn't have had to earmark the entirety of that in order to have
You shouldn't have, but once you said you did.
Right, which is where it was intended to go.
Amber can spin things. She is saying how sad it is that she had to donate all that money to be believed. This is not at all the point. The point is that she said she did and did not, thereby proving herself to be a liar.
I think no matter what, it will mean something. I did the right thing. I did everything I could to stand up for myself and the truth.
She still wants so badly to be an inspiration, a symbol for standing up for what is right, even when the system lets you down.
I love him. I loved him with all my heart. And I tried the best I could to make a deeply broken relationship work. And I couldn't. I have no bad feelings or ill will towards him at all. I know that might be hard to understand, or it might be really easy to understand. If you've just ever loved anyone, it should be easy.
Well, I guess for me, the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. So given that, she clearly has a lot of love left for Johnny. There you have it, our quick look at Amber Heard. Is she a narcissist? I'll let you decide. Please don't forget to hit the like button if you like the video, and I would love it if you could subscribe. We've also got really cheap channel memberships of $1.99. It helps keep Rio in food. And if you like true crime, check out the Patreon. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Until we meet again, please be kind, and hasta luego.